Shalom Bracha. We started to talk about the Indian from the Teshuva movement, which all Gedolei Yisrael saw what's coming and what we experienced Lamaisa, what they saw already 100 years ago. And I wanted to expand a little bit. L'chatchila, I wasn't going to go barichas to it. I think it's kedai to really understand how the Sharim Neftachim, who was Zeicha in our generation, it's getting stronger and stronger. And we have to take a few steps to get to the full understanding of what really is going on. So I think we should start off with first understanding what was really going on before the Second World War. This is obvious, everyone knows that the schwachste matzah of Klal Yisrael ever had, at least since the Churban, was in the time between the First and Second World War. But to just appreciate the Teshuva movement from then to now, it's important to go into it. We spoke about it a little bit when we spoke about the Sugya of B'tachin, Amunah, how much it was the hardest time was in Ikris Noshich was before the Second World War. I want to go more into details. So everyone knows the Mashech Chachman Parshas B'chikoisai, how he says over there, he's speaking about his generation, that the Frei Yidden, they think the Berlin is Yerushalayim, and they do like the worst of the Goyim. And he says there's going to come a hurricane, Riach Soya V'Sar Ya'akay Oisem Megizoi. He's going to send them flying to another place. They'll go further in Galus. So let's talk about what was really going on. The Chafetz Chaim, when the letter writes, the Torah Hakdosh is getting forgotten. From day to day, it's getting smaller. And there's nothing left from us. Only a small amount of yeshivas, or that the Torah is being heard in them. And all the schools and all the chadarim, the places where they're learning, they teach their kfira and minas. The Chafetz Chaim wasn't a kanoi, he's not talking about kfira and minas, kanoi is kfira and minas in today's generation. So about real kfira and minas, talking about the haskala, he's talking about all the Zionism and all the different things of the real kaifrim. He says the schools of kfira and minas are getting more and more. The new generation is getting a chinuch, which is Zohar L'Ruach Tereseinu HaKdosha. How far it goes, the Chafetz Chaim's understanding what kind of tragedy the generation was. It's kedai to bring over here a shmuz between Harav Dolinsky Tzitzal, who was the son of Moshe Dolinsky, I'm not sure, Meir Dolinsky, Talmud Hulik from the Chafetz Chaim. This Harav Dolinsky together had a shmuz with Reb Chaim Volkan, Shkiach Yeshivas Chavre. And it's brought down, the shmuz is brought down, they spoke to each other. So Harav Dolinsky was a son of a Talmud of the Chafetz Chaim. So Reb Chaim Volkan told Harav Dolinsky that they say over with Chafetz Chaim, said that the door is so shvach that people should have big families, because maybe he'll be zeiche to one child that's good. And that's why you should have big families. So he said, Avdulinsky said that's true. But he said more than that. He said the Chafetz Chaim really wasn't masking to give parents brachas to have children. Because it was such a sakana to have children, those that didn't have children, Chafetz Chaim didn't give brachas to have children. He said that one of the Talmidim from the Chafetz Chaim told him a story that in his city there was a woman that didn't have any children, and she wanted to get a bracha from the Chafetz Chaim, but she didn't know the way. In those days, the ways wasn't so easy. She didn't know how to go to the Chafetz Chaim. So one Ben Zmanim, after the Ben Zmanim, the bacher was returning to the Chafetz Chaim's yeshiva. So she said, "Let me go with you." She went with him to the yeshiva. he knew the way, good, and they come to the Chofetz Chaim's house. She goes in, and he follows in. And he said that she asked the Chofetz Chaim when he came. She said she wants children. She asked her, why do you want children? She said, I don't want to be left without any hamshach after me. Chofetz Chaim, no, said no. So you won't have any Mechal Shabbos that go after you. Chofetz Chaim was reluctant to give her a bracha. And that's how what kind of skana the matzah of the chinuch was in that generation was so unbelievable that the Chofetz Chaim didn't want to give brachas for children. Of course, I'm not over here trying to degrade Klal Yisrael Chas v'Chalila, but in order to appreciate what the siyat the Shemaya that we're having and what Chazal meant, the Nisyanis of Ikris and the Mashiach, to have a real haracha for the Torah, for the Nevuah, and for this Hakaras HaTorah, for the Rebbeinu Shalom, we have to talk about this because, or else, how will we be able to understand what the Rebbeinu Shalom wants from us and how much we owe him? So that's I'm being marked in this Chas v'Chalila, for speaking such a thing, but these things have to be spoken. The Bolzer Rebbe, the Tzal Lebaran, as a Kudish Vatur Lebaran, once told someone who gave his children told someone that gave over his child to a melamed to teach. He said, in today's generation, we don't have to hit the kids. It's not a tzarech to hit the kids. He says, my father, Misach Doiv, he said that in the earlier generations, that when they would take the kids to yeshivas, they would go with chias, they would be crying, but Baruch Hashem, today's generation, we don't have to be hit the kids there. Baruch Hashem, go to b'simcha. That's how we understood the cheshivas of our generation, how even you can see the difference between the small kids, how they go to Cheder in the beginning. When the Baal Belzel came to Eretz Yisrael the first time, so there was the Chashaviyat, a Rav. He feared Shabbos in Haifa. They made a Kabbalas Panim for him. I think it was in Yerushalayim. When he came to Yerushalayim, maybe they made a Kabbalas Panim. And so the Rav of the city over there told Chashaviyat, he told the Rebbe that when the Minkach Rebbe, Minchas Alusa, came to Eretz Yisrael, that he told Minchas Alusa, Eretz Yisrael is my Yeshudim. Out of my Yeshudim is Palestine. As if that's the Eretz Yisrael is the Elochidin are only in my Yeshudim. That's true. I'll tell you what the Belgai Ruv, the Ara Lebelze, the brother, told me. He said, well, I'll tell you what my brother told me. That we found Eretz Yisrael 100 times better than we expected it to be. Meaning to say, the Baal said in other times that they lied to him at the matzah of Eretz Yisrael, where he was, and he came to Israel, he found the people 100 times better. And he said, I told my brother, the Belgai Rov, that 200 times better. He said, Haifa was Chalayin Digeshtat. The first Shabbos they came to Israel was in Haifa. And he said that the Baruch says that I couldn't be mitar, I never was zeichet to see such a great Shabbos for 40 years, even in Belz. Means the matzav of the Yehadus in Haifa, which was the Freistadt, which the other Rav called Palestine, and Achas Kamakava Haifa, which was from the real Frei places. He says that Shabbos we came, the matzah was I haven't had as a Shabbos 40 years. The Belzerov is given the Belzeroven was named the Belzeroven Deheim, all this Hasidim, and 40 years means going back to Tov Reish Samach Dalad, before 10 years before the First World War. He says, I haven't had as a serious digger, such a Varam Shabbos with such Elicha people. That's what the Matzav was in Belz, by the Belz Erav, that he said that you're calling it Palestine, it's 200 times better than it was when I was in Belz, Chutzlaritz. And that's why he said other times that they lied to him, the Matzav of Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Eliezer Gordon they offered, Yitzchak Blazer offered, was I guess the one they sent to offer to the Rabbi Eliezer Gordon, the Shiva and the Rav of Telz, to come to take over the Aderes was Nifta, to take over the Aderes' place in Yerushalayim, to be the successor of Shmuel Salant. And in the Teshuva, he writes that Stadam to not to take Stadam, to take, and then he says like this. He says, when he talks about the Stadam, he said Stadam not to go. He wasn't interested. Why he wasn't interested in becoming the Rav of Yerushalayim. Then he said, but against this is the starkest svara. I have a big suffix there. Maybe I should go. Shket the Rabbanos of Yerushalayim. Why? Because saying the Rabbim in l'shar is good lakfira. This is talking about, when was this written? This was written Tov Reish Samach Zayin, like 7 years before, maybe before the First World War. He says that we can be mishar the goydel hakfir sheparts of the tremendous kfir which is going on in Telz, the Hilgestadt, and the kids and the daughters and the boys and girls. He says that every day we see that the kids, boys and girls that were elach, boys and girls, they become poikrim, they turned over to be poikrim gedolim. So he says, Hagam, that my children, my boys and girls are going in derech HaTorah, but who knows what's going to be the end with them in a few years. He says, Masha Enkein, Irkachenu, that the Pirza Kfir is not so much, maybe that's a reason that should come to Yerushalayim. Shmayu Igraiman said over on the Chaznish that the Hagam, the Second World War, was a tremendous tragedy. He says it was a big rachman for the Rebbeinu Shalom. He says, how many ladies were there that were shoym b'taras mashpach and Vilna? How many ate kosher food? He says, boided them. There was single people, very, very small amount of people. Even yeshivas for tashbar, for kids, there was only one cheder in the whole Vilna for kids to learn the Heilige Torah. Reb Shach said that he was the only one from his family and his whole city that stayed Shema Torah mitzvahs. He said, Shach also said that most ladies in Vilna went uncovered. The Klosenberger Rebbe said over him that he gave different numbers, different times, but he said over there were thousands of Yiddish priests in the church. And he says there was 55. There were 56. He says it was in the high 50s and close to, and it says 70% of the professors in universities were Jews. Basically, over 50% of the professors and the Jews were Jews in Germany. He says 30% of the priests were Jews. Says when he got locked up caught by the Germans, he says with him there was a bunch of Yidden that were part of the Nazis in the beginning. They were part of the Nazis party, and the end of the Nazis turning on them. And there was a Yiddish priest that was sent away. Yesterday last time we said over from the Matchat Zuckerman, he said that he didn't come home. He often to his house because he was embarrassed by Ben Yeshivit to drezich in the streets. He said that Yiddishkeit Poshta as a regel went bankrupt. There was not in Europe before the war. And Meir Mazuz says that his father was the Rav in Tunis. Yeah, I think he had a yeshiva in Kisar Achman. I don't know if it was Rav in Tunis. He had a yeshiva in Kisar Achman in Tunis, and he said that he didn't. He wanted to come to. It seems like he wanted to come to Israel, but they told him not to come. Why? Because they were saying Israel is mamish shvach Zachen, the Mechal Shabbos. It was the worst of the worst. That's what they were telling him. So he was scared to come to Israel. He says, in that same time they were telling him not to come to Israel, in Tunis itself, they were Mechal Shabbos with Hesius. He said he would walk in the street, come out of his Medrash Friday night, and there would be Mechal Shabbos until Chatzos, so made up that Shabbos starts by Chatzos and Laila. And that's what the Adam did. And they would come out, they got a big part of the Olam didn't get married with Yiddish haluchas, only went to a local didn't get married with Kedas Moshe Yisrael. And he says that it was much better here. When he came later, they were forced to go. I'm not sure it was the Second World War, whatever it was, they came to Eretz Yisrael, they realized that Eretz Yisrael was a lot better than what was going on there. That's what the matzav was before the war. He said over there that Shmuz, Delinsky says that this generation is a lot much better than the previous generations. He says, today's days you go into the Smedish, the kids that are learning B'simcha with the Kashumak, between us at Derech, they go into Yeshiva, Chedarim. He says, in my time, there was no, Olam didn't go, the Lush thing. He says, I feel that Oyris Mashiach. And again, these people saw the past and the future. They saw the difference. They were able to feel with their hands the Oyris of Mashiach. Well, we were born into these Oyris. We don't appreciate it. The Adam Steiner said, before the war, people to learn after the Chassan, there was mamish yichida school, mamish no one. After they got married, went to work, and the night they came and learned a little bit. Today's days, obviously it's not like that. There was such a musig. People, not because they just didn't, it wasn't the cheshik and the gamatziv wasn't like that. Godless and Tahiri was not like that. Shmuel Orbach, Zitzal, he said the same idea. He said, he was speaking about a lot of different things that today's generation is achshadora. He says, Shmuel said that it's kind of hard to find the Yidus Adoris. And he chapped a mashal. What the mashal, look, Ben Izmanim. He says, Ben Izmanim used to be before the war. Ben Izmanim was empty. No, I didn't learn. And the Gaboim used to fight over the titles, and everyone used to fight with each other. He says one or two of a mishpacha would learn a few hours as if any mitzvah of Isim in his manim. And he said, today, Baruch Hashem, the Ilim learns much more, becomes ba'eichus. And David Pavarsky says, we saw with our own eyes what was going on before the First World War and how much the Ilim was in Sreifif Torah Shria Mitzvahs. It was mamish terrible, and then afterwards, after the Second World War, it got even worse, got even more shvacha. And that was the matzav of before the Second World War. Before the Second World War was the matzav of Ikris and the Shicha Chitzviyaska, the Toyrus, the Midrashim, no one was learning. It was a matzav of Yerida. Again, there were definitely G'dayla Tzdikim and Elachim and Reim and Shalaimim. But we just have to know the Metzias to thank Hashem, to what we have, to appreciate going further, how much we owe Akaras HaTorah to the Rebbeinu Shalom, and understand what Chazal really meant, what Ikva says Shikha meant. People, sometimes I once saw someone bringing down one of these letters from the Chafetz Chaim, how hard what the generation was, the Nisyonis of the generation, the Chalachil Shabbos, the Bittul Shmir, said Taharas Mashpacha, they didn't go to the mikveh, and someone brought that down, and then he says, in the Hakdamat HaSefer, he says, in Kolchka now generation, that's just like And so we really have to understand what Chazal meant, and we really have to have a course and look how it's just getting stronger, and appreciate where we are, what we're living in. And so now that we have a little understanding of what it was before the Second World War, so now we can start understanding more the chiddush of the Teshuva movement, of first of all what the Second World War caused and did to the Klal Yisrael, and how it cleansed Klal Yisrael. We'll see the Gedol Yisrael said that, and in a practical way, in a rachnistic way, and how slowly over the generations the Klal Yisrael is getting stronger and stronger. The Ruach HaTahara is Rak Yelechem Mayim Tehirim is getting stronger and stronger, and Hashem should hope that the Shvila Te'elis is Chas v'Shalom not L'Zalzel in the Friedige Kufis, in the Friedige Yidden, the Kulam Kedoshim Ahuvim. Today's generation, we know that even the Shvacha people, the Teichen, we see it that even the Teichen of the Shvacha people are Elch Yidden, and Yidden are always Elch Yidden. Sometimes even when you can't see it, they're always Elch. But we just have to know what the matzav on the ground was in order to appreciate Darkei Hashem.